Thanksgiving has always been my favorite time of the year. It wasn't just about the food or the perfectly set dinner table. It was about the feeling of togetherness, the warmth of family filling the house, the laughter that echoed through the rooms. I had spent my childhood looking forward to those big family gatherings, where the scent of roasted turkey and cinnamon would blend in the air, where we'd all squeeze around the long dining table, sharing stories and passing dishes as if time had no hold on us. And even as an adult, even after everything that had changed over the years, I still held on to the hope that Thanksgiving would always be like that. That's why, when my mom called me just a few weeks before the holiday, I felt an instant wave of excitement. Despite the tension that had simmered beneath the surface for years, despite the unspoken rivalries and the favoritism I had tried so hard to ignore, I still wanted to believe that family traditions mattered. That my kids, Ava and Noah, would get to experience the same love and warmth I once had. "Hey, sweetheart." Mom's voice was unusually light, almost too cheerful. "We need to talk about Thanksgiving this year." I smiled, already picturing the scene, the golden brown turkey sitting at the center of the table, the fireplace crackling, my kids running around with their cousins. "Of course, Mom. What's the plan?" There was a pause, just long enough to send a chill through me. "Well," she cleared her throat, "this year, we're doing things a little differently. We thought, maybe a smaller dinner. Just adults. Something more intimate." I frowned, gripping the phone a little tighter. "Oh, so no kids at all?" Another pause. Then, as if she had been rehearsing it, she said, "Well, not exactly." A knot twisted in my stomach. Something was wrong. "What do you mean?" Mom sighed, as if I was the one making this conversation difficult. "Maya, we love your kids, we really do. But they're just energetic. And we really want a peaceful evening this year. It would just be easier if you left them with a sitter." I blinked, feeling the words settle over me like a slap. "So, just my kids." My voice came out quieter than I intended. Silence. Then, finally, Mom admitted, "Eric and Nicole are bringing their boys." Eric, my older brother, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. Mom hesitated. "You know how well-behaved their boys are, Maya. They're just quieter, more refined. It's easier to have them at the table." Something inside me shattered. I had spent years trying to pretend it wasn't real, that it was just in my head. But this was undeniable. They loved his kids more, and they didn't even care enough to hide it. I hung up the phone, my hand still gripping it so tightly my knuckles ached. The silence in the kitchen felt suffocating, heavy with the weight of what had just happened. My parents, my own parents, had drawn a line in the sand. My children weren't welcome, but my brothers were. A hollow numbness spread through my chest, followed almost immediately by a rush of painful memories. This wasn't the first time. I thought back to the school recitals Ava had begged them to attend. I had sent reminders, saved them seats, even made sure they had directions. But they never showed up. "Something came up," Mom would say with a sigh, acting as if it was just one of those things. But I remembered the way Ava's face had fallen when she peeked out into the crowd and didn't see them. Yet when Eric's kids had their school play, Mom and Dad had been front row, beaming with pride, recording every moment. Christmas? That had always been another slap in the face. The gifts for my kids were nice, sure, but the ones for Eric's kids? Bigger, more expensive, more thoughtful. One year, Ava got a small dollhouse. Cute, simple. That same year, Eric's daughter got a custom-painted playhouse for the backyard, complete with furniture. When I had pointed out the difference, Mom had waved it off. "Oh, we just saw it and knew she'd love it." And birthdays? They never missed Eric's kids' parties. But when Noah turned 3, I had invited them weeks in advance, even followed up the day before. Mom had called that morning, feigning regret. "We're just so tired, sweetheart. But give him a big hug from us." That was the moment I should have known. That was the moment I should have stopped trying. But this was a new low. I set the phone down, my mind racing. Should I let this go? Should I brush it off? Keep the peace like I always had? No. Not this time. If my kids weren't welcome, then neither was I. I took a deep breath and walked into the living room, where Jack was stretched out on the couch, scrolling through his phone. He looked up the second he saw my face. "What's wrong?" I swallowed, forcing my voice to stay even. "Mom just called. She doesn't want the kids at Thanksgiving." His brows furrowed. Wait, what? They said they want an adult-only dinner. I let out a humorless laugh. Except Eric's kids are still invited. Jack sat up, setting his phone down. You're joking. I shook my head. A slow wave of anger darkened his features. They actually said that. They said it would be easier without our kids there, that they're too energetic. But Eric's kids are well-behaved, so it's different. Jack let out a sharp exhale, running a hand through his hair. That's messed up. And they don't even realize how awful that sounds. They don't care, I whispered. They never have. Jack's jaw tightened. Then I hope you told them where to shove their invitation. I nodded. I told Mom that if our kids aren't welcome, then neither am I. His eyes softened as he reached for my hand. Good. I squeezed his hand, then exhaled. I don't want to tell Ava and Noah. They won't understand. Jack nodded. We'll just make our own Thanksgiving. Something better. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Yes. Something better. Just as I started to feel a flicker of peace, my phone buzzed. Eric. I already knew what it was before I even read the message. Eric, Mom said you're being difficult about Thanksgiving. Why do you always have to make everything so dramatic? A bitter laugh escaped my lips. Of course. I typed back, my fingers steady. Me? Oh, so she told you she uninvited my kids but kept yours? The typing bubbles appeared. Then it disappeared. A full minute passed before he finally responded. Eric, they just want a calm dinner, Maya. You know how your kids can be a lot. I stared at the words, my blood running cold. A lot. Like they were a burden. Like they weren't wanted. That was all I needed to hear. I typed back, my response short and final. Me. Enjoy your Thanksgiving, Eric. I won't be there. Then, before he could respond, I turned off my phone and set it down. For the first time in my life, I didn't care about their approval. And I never would again. The silence was deafening. After my last message to Eric, I expected some sort of immediate response. A call from Mom, an angry text from Dad, something. But instead, there was nothing. Days passed. Then a full week. My parents had always been the type to reach out, to send guilt-laced messages dripping with passive aggression. But this time, they went quiet. And I knew exactly why. They were waiting for me to break first. This was their game. They wanted me to sit with the weight of my decision, to feel the discomfort of their absence, to cave and come crawling back like I always had. In their minds, I was just being overly emotional. I was upset at the moment. Any day now, I would surely realize my mistake and beg for things to go back to normal. But what they didn't understand, what they had never understood, was that this time was different. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't waiting by my phone, hoping they would see their mistake. I was done. So when the calls finally did start coming, I ignored them. The first one was from Mom. I watched the phone vibrate on the counter, her name flashing on the screen, and let it go to voicemail. I didn't even bother listening to it. The second call came from Dad 2 days later. Declined. Then the text started. Mom, hey sweetheart, hope you're doing okay. Let's talk. Then, a few hours later, Mom, Maya, ignoring us isn't going to fix anything. We just want to have a conversation. Then came the classic guilt trip voicemail. Hi, honey. It's Mom. I don't know why you're being so stubborn about this. You're making such a big deal out of nothing. We were just trying to have a quiet dinner. Why are you punishing us? Anyway, call me back. Love you. I deleted it without hesitation. A week later, the messages slowed down. Then, just like clockwork, Mom called again, this time with a new approach. I picked it up, if only out of curiosity. Hello. My voice was flat. Mom's tone was light, cheerful, too cheerful. Maya, it's so good to hear your voice. How are you? I almost laughed. This was it. The reset. She was pretending like none of it had happened, like I had just been in a mood, and now things could go back to the way they were. I'm fine, I said coolly. I hope you've cooled off, she continued with a forced chuckle. We really missed you at dinner. It wasn't the same without you. But listen, we'd love for you and Jack to come for Christmas. Let's put all this behind us, okay? There it was, the expectation. In her mind, I was supposed to sigh in relief, to feel grateful that they were giving me a second chance. I was supposed to apologize. I took a slow breath. No, Mom. If my kids aren't welcome, neither am I. A beat of silence. Then, her voice tightened. Oh, For God's sake, Maya. Must you be so dramatic? My grip on the phone tightened, but I kept my voice steady. It's not a drama. It's a boundary. Mom scoffed. You're being selfish. Do you have any idea how much you're hurting us over this ridiculous grudge? I swallowed, waiting for the guilt to creep in. Normally, this is where I would start second-guessing myself, where the weight of disappointing them would feel unbearable. But nothing. No guilt. No regret. Just relief. I finally saw them for who they were. They weren't upset because they missed me. They were upset because I wasn't falling in line. I had always been the one who kept the peace. The one who apologized, the one who let things go, the one who tried to keep the family together. But the truth was, they didn't want a family. They wanted control. And I wasn't playing that role anymore. I'm not hurting anyone, I said calmly. I just finally see where I stand. You're being ridiculous, Mom snapped, all pretense of kindness gone. Eric isn't acting like this. He's being mature about it. I smiled to myself. Of course. Eric, the golden child, was the perfect example of maturity. Then maybe you should enjoy Christmas with him, I said simply. Because I won't be there. Mom exhaled sharply. I don't even know who you are anymore. Maybe that's the problem, I replied. And then, before she could say another word, I hung up. Jack had been standing in the doorway the entire time, arms crossed, watching me. As I set my phone down, he walked over and pressed a kiss to my forehead. You okay? He asked. I let out a long breath. Yeah. He gave me a small smile. You did the right thing. I nodded. And for the first time in my life, I actually believed it. For 2 weeks, there was nothing. No calls. No texts. Just silence. At first, I thought maybe, just maybe, they had finally gotten the message. That they had realized I wasn't going to cave, that I was serious about keeping my boundaries. But deep down, I knew better. My parents weren't the type to let go. They were just waiting, plotting their next move. And sure enough, right on cue, my phone lit up with an incoming call. Dad. I stared at the screen for a moment before flipping my phone over on the table, letting it ring out. A minute later, a voicemail popped up, his voice casual as if nothing had happened. Hey, Maya. Can you give me a call back? I just got a new phone, and I need some help setting it up. Talk soon. I scoffed. Seriously? 2 weeks of silence. 2 weeks of refusing to acknowledge what they had done. And now, suddenly, I was supposed to play tech support? I deleted the voicemail, without listening to the rest. Then, an hour later, another message, this time from Mom. Mom, hey, sweetheart. Can you grab my prescription from the pharmacy? My fingers tightened around my phone. No apology. No mention of Thanksgiving. Just a request. And suddenly, it all became so clear. They didn't care about what had happened. They didn't care that I was hurt. They didn't care that they had blatantly rejected my children. They only cared about what I could do for them. I didn't respond. But it wasn't over yet. The next morning, my phone rang again. This time it was Mom. I hesitated, debating whether to let it go to voicemail like before, but something told me to pick up. The second I answered, I was met with rage. Did you cancel the credit card? I blinked. What? She huffed, furious. Your father just tried to use the card at the store, and it was declined. He called the bank and they said it was closed. What the hell, Maya? My stomach twisted as an icy realization settled in. They weren't talking about their card. They were talking about mine. Years ago, back when Dad had lost his job and money was tight, I had added them as authorized users on one of my credit cards. It had been temporary, just to help them through a rough patch. But life got busy, and I had forgotten to remove them. And they never reminded me, because why would they? It had been years. Years. And they kept using it. I let out a slow, steady breath, my heart pounding. You mean my credit card? Mom scoffed. Oh, don't be so dramatic. It's just a card. You make good money. It's not like you even noticed. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. So let me get this straight. You've been secretly using my money for years, and you're mad that I found out? Mom let out a sharp sign, as if I was the one being unreasonable. Maya, we're parents. After everything we've done for you, this is the least you could do for us. We raised you. We sacrificed for you. I closed my eyes, gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles ached. There it was, the entitlement, the expectation that because they were my parents, I owed them everything. I took a slow, measured breath. And then, with absolute clarity, I said the words I should have said years ago. "You'll never see another cent from me again." Silence. Then, an explosion. "Are you serious?" Mom shrieked. "You're really going to do this to us? Your own parents?" I felt my lips curl into a bitter smile. "I didn't do this." "You did," she sputtered, but I wasn't finished. "You had every opportunity to treat me like I mattered, to treat my kids like they mattered. Instead, you took my kindness for granted. You thought I wouldn't notice. Well, I noticed, and I'm done." Mom's voice dropped into a low, venomous whisper. "You're going to regret this, Maya." I shook my head.
"No, Mom."
"You are." And with that, I ended the call. For the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of their reaction. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel like I owed them an explanation. I just felt free. The house was filled with warmth, the scent of sugar cookies in the oven mixing with the pine from the Christmas tree. Ava and Noah were buzzing with excitement, barely able to contain themselves as they ran around in their pajamas, shaking the wrapped presents under the tree. Laughter echoed through the living room, the twinkling lights reflecting in their wide, eager eyes. For the first time in years, Christmas felt light. There was no pressure, no frantic rushing to get the kids dressed in their best clothes, no stress about arriving on time to a house where we never truly felt wanted. It was just us.
Happy. Carefree.
Exactly the way it was supposed to be. And then the knock. Jack and I exchanged glances. He sighed, setting down his mug of cocoa. "You think I already knew." I exhaled sharply and walked toward the door, my stomach tightening. Through the peephole I saw them.
Mom.
Dad. And a giant, beautifully wrapped present in Dad's hands. I clenched my jaw, steeling myself before I pulled the door open. Mom's face immediately lit up with that fake, sugary sweet smile. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart." Dad held the gift out, the red ribbon glistening under the porch light. "For the kids." I stared at them. I didn't need to ask why they were here. It wasn't about Christmas. It wasn't about making things right. This was another game, another test. They thought if they showed up with a grand gesture, I would fold, that I would sigh, smile, let them in, let them win. I kept my arms crossed. "No thanks." The smile on Mom's face faltered. "Maya, don't be ridiculous. It's Christmas." I leaned against the doorframe, unimpressed. "Oh, so now it's Christmas? A few weeks ago, my kids weren't even good enough to sit at your dinner table." A flicker of irritation flashed in her eyes before she quickly masked it. "Oh, don't ruin Christmas over this." I let out a sharp laugh. "I ruined Christmas? You already did that when you told me my kids weren't welcome." Her face hardened. "We just wanted a peaceful evening. That's all. You took it the wrong way." "The wrong way?" I repeated, tilting my head. "Let me make sure I understand. You invited Eric's kids and told me mine were too much, and somehow, I'm the one taking it the wrong way." Dad let out a long sigh, stepping forward. "Come on, Maya. Let's not do this. Let's just be a family again." I stared at him. The audacity. They didn't want to be a family. They wanted control. Control over me, over when I was welcome, over what I was supposed to accept without question. They wanted me to be grateful for whatever crumbs they decided to offer. Not anymore. I straightened, looking them both in the eye. "You don't want a family. You want control. And you don't have that anymore." Mom's mouth opened, then snapped shut, her face twisting into something ugly, something I had seen 100 times before. Dad muttered, "You're making a mistake." I exhaled, my voice calm.
"No."
"I'm finally not." And before they could say another word, I shut the door. For a moment, I stood there listening. I heard Mom's irritated huff, Dad muttering something under his breath. Then footsteps. A minute later, the sound of their car pulling away. Jack leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. That went well. I turned to him, letting out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "Yeah," I said, voice steadier than I felt. It did. From the living room, I heard Ava and Noah giggling, completely unaware of what had just happened. Jack wrapped an arm around me, pressing a kiss to my temple. "You okay?" I looked at him, really looked at him. Then, over at our kids, at the Christmas tree, at the warmth filling our home. And I smiled. I am now. The silence stretched for weeks. No calls, no texts, no desperate attempts to force their way back into my life. After shutting the door in their faces on Christmas Eve, I had dared to hope that maybe, just maybe, they had finally given up, that they had accepted my decision and realized I wasn't going to break. But I should have known better. One afternoon, as I sat on the couch watching Ava and Noah build a fort out of blankets, Jack walked in from the mailbox, a large envelope in his hands. His expression was unreadable as he turned it over, then carefully peeled it open. I glanced up at him. "What is it?" Jack didn't answer right away. Instead, he scanned the contents, his jaw tightening with each passing second. Then, finally, he exhaled and looked at me. "They've been talking to a lawyer." A chill ran down my spine. I straightened. "For what?" His eyes met mine. "They're looking into grandparents' rights." The world seemed to slow. My stomach twisted into a tight knot as his words settled in, and then, pure, unfiltered rage. I snatched the papers from his hands, scanning through them, my pulse pounding. Sure enough, there it was in black and white. They were exploring legal options to force their way back into my kids' lives. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Are they insane? Jack sat beside me, his hand resting on my knee. They think they can bully their way back in. Not a chance. I wouldn't let them win. I wouldn't let them anywhere near my children. Without wasting a second, I grabbed my laptop and started collecting every single piece of proof I had. Every passive-aggressive text. Every voicemail drips with manipulation. Every record of their unauthorized spending on my credit card. They wanted a legal battle? Fine. I would bury them. That night, just as I was finishing my notes, my phone buzzed with an incoming text. "Eric." I already knew what it was before I even read it. "Eric, this is going too far, Maya." I stared at the screen, my hands tightening into fists. I took a breath. Then, with complete calm, I typed my response. It went too far when they excluded my kids. Read. No reply. Coward. I set my phone down, exhaled, and then made the call. Mom answered on the second ring, her voice carefully composed.
"Maya."
"I was wondering when you'd call. I didn't waste time. If you go through with this, I will destroy you in court." Silence. Then a nervous chuckle. "Oh, honey, this isn't personal. We just want what's best for the children." I clenched my jaw. "The children you refused to have at Thanksgiving? The ones you called too much? You don't get to pick and choose when you care about them." Mom's voice sharpened. "Maya, don't do this. We have rights." I smiled coldly. "No, you don't. And even if you did, I have proof." More silence. I could hear the hesitation, the way she was trying to decide if she could still manipulate me. Then, Dad's voice came through, weaker than usual. "Sweetheart, let's not escalate things." I laughed. "Oh, now you want to be reasonable?" I could practically hear Mom grinding her teeth. "You're making a mistake." My voice was calm, deliberate.
"No."
"I made a choice. And if you try this, you will regret it." Silence stretched between us. Then, click. Call ended. I let out a breath, my heart finally slowing. Jack reached for my hand. "It's over." I nodded.
"Yeah."
"It is." And for the first time in my life, I knew I had won. Weeks passed. No calls. No texts. No lawsuit. They had lost, and they knew it. At first, I braced myself for another move, another desperate attempt to regain control. But as the days stretched into weeks, I realized something. I wasn't waiting for their next play anymore. Because I didn't care. For the first time in my life, I wasn't looking over my shoulder, wondering how to fix things, how to make them love me the way they loved Eric. I wasn't replaying conversations in my head, trying to figure out what I could have said differently. The weight I had carried my entire life, the need for their approval, for their validation, was finally gone. And I was free. It was a warm spring afternoon when I truly felt it. The kind of day where the sky is impossibly blue, where the air smells fresh, where everything feels light. Ava and Noah were in the backyard, chasing bubbles, their laughter ringing through the air. Noah squealed as he popped one, while Ava tried to catch them on her fingertips. The simple joy of it all made my chest ache, not with sadness, but with peace. Jack walked onto the porch, handing me a glass of lemonade as he sat beside me. His arm brushed against mine, solid and steady, my anchor through it all. He watched the kids for a moment, then turned to me, smirking. "Think they'll ever try again?" I thought about it, about my parents, their entitlement, their inability to accept losing. Maybe they would try. Maybe one day, there'd be another call, another attempt to pull me back into their world. But it wouldn't matter. I had already made my choice. I sipped my drink, letting the cool citrus settle on my tongue. Then, with a slow, satisfied smile, I answered, "Doesn't matter." Jack raised an eyebrow. "No." I shook my head, watching my children, the ones my parents had so easily cast aside, the ones I would never let feel unwanted again. I already won. Family is supposed to be a safe place, a space of love, acceptance, and support. But sometimes, the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. For years, I thought I had to earn my parents' love. I thought if I was the dutiful daughter, if I helped when they needed me, if I kept the peace, they would finally see me as equal to my brother. But the truth is, some people will only love you under conditions. And that's not love. Real love, real family, doesn't make you feel like you have to prove yourself. It doesn't make you question your worth. It doesn't pick and choose who is good enough to belong. So if you've ever felt like you had to shrink yourself to be accepted, if you've ever felt unseen, unheard, unwanted by the very people who should have cherished you, let me tell you something.
You don't owe them anything.
Not your time, not your love, not your loyalty, and definitely not your money. People will call you selfish for setting boundaries. They'll guilt trip you, try to make you feel like the bad guy. Because when you stop playing by their rules, they lose control. But cutting ties isn't cruel. It's survival. You don't have to keep people in your life just because they share your blood. You don't have to keep forgiving the same wounds just because they expect you to. And you definitely don't have to let them hurt your children the way they hurt you. Because at the end of the day, the best revenge? It's not fighting. It's not proving them wrong. It's living well. It's being happy. It's building a life so full of love and peace that you never feel their absence. Because real family? It's not the one you're born into. It's the one that chooses you back.